2024 has been nothing short of sequels from movies over 30 years old, all for the purpose of money. The sequel to the cult classic Beetlejuice returns to the big screen. Now, there's only two ways this movie will be perceived. Either it's a forgettable flop like most remakes/sequels, or it's a massive hit like Top Gun Maverick. Well, you'll be surprised to know that it's neither. It's created a third rabbit hole. It's called mid. It's neither bad nor good, just okay. Some entertaining moments, but overall quite disappointing. You see, I wasn't sure what to expect from Beetlejuice Times 2. The original from 1988 is a great movie, it holds up well. The humour is unique, the makeup and practical effects create this timeless look that sticks with you. Did it need a sequel after so many years? No, it didn't. Did it justify itself to be made after all this time? No, and that's what's disappointing. There is really no reason for this story to be told. What about this is so different from the first? They're warned not to summon Beetlejuice, they get in a situation where they have no choice but to call him, they find a loophole to send him back, and there's sandworms. It's exactly the same, but worse. Well, not exactly, because they were treading on some interesting ideas in the afterlife, but they were never fully developed. They were just ideas that never came into fruition. It was a mess, and yeah, you can argue that the original was a mess, but that was embracing the wacky chaos of the world. This one was struggling to weave all of its subplots together in coherent fashion. They would experiment with one subplot, play around with it for the first act, then completely forget about it for the rest of the movie, put it to one side, and then have it conveniently come back for the finale without making any sense. So the characters they bring back for this are the ones who aren't in jail. So they've been written out for convenience of the plot. The characters who are back are Lydia Dietz and her stepmother Delia. Lydia has become famous as a supernatural talk show host. She is suffering psychologically after seeing visions of Beetlejuice. She has a conceited boyfriend and an estranged daughter called Astrid. Lydia's relationship with Astrid is similar to that of Lydia and Delia's in the original, so they are treading on the same dynamic from slightly different perspectives, but ultimately maintaining the spirit of the original. At the start of the movie, their relationship starts off as distant. It's then marauded by a wacky and chaotic second act in the afterlife that mends their relationship. But this theme was not made out to be a clear and central theme to the story. In the original, it had the Maitlands couple providing a strong emotional connection with Lydia. It was the heart of the movie. Lydia and Astrid's relationship should have been the heart of this movie, but it wasn't because the focus kept shifting to other subplots. And these subplots were cool in theory. Beetlejuice had a former lover who had this really cool design in which all her body parts have been severed. She is reawakened and is hell-bent on reclaiming him. They show their backstory through an homage to Italian horror cinema from the 1960s, which was really creative. But then they just kind of put it in the back burner. It added conflict to the story but should have played a bigger role because I thought this character was underused. And there was the role of Jack Wolf, a B-movie actor turned detective. He was actually a great addition to the Beetlejuice world in terms of comedy. His scenes were fun, ironic, and tonally consistent with the humour we love from the original. But sometimes it felt like this angle was not as well constructed or smooth. He also just appears during the final act without having the appropriate development. The other storyline which plays a bigger part in correlation to the main narrative is regarding Astrid. She finds herself forming a romantic relationship with this boy in a treehouse. This whole plot was really dull and poorly constructed. Again, though, the idea was creative and fun in theory, but every time they cut to this storyline, I was really bored. And it was painfully obvious what the twist was. Either the filmmakers weren't good at hiding this, or it's because this type of trope is something we've all become familiar to. So we inherently expect these twists now, which is a shame. I think where the movie really suffered was the second act. It just felt stuck, like they were still figuring out where to fit the pieces in place. It didn't feel like a smooth progression into the third act. It didn't feel as unique or inventive as the original. Lydia's boyfriend Rory felt like an overt replica of Otho. The slick black hair and obnoxious behaviour kind of gave it away. It didn't really make sense why Lydia would be with someone like him. And when they do explain it, it's so lazily done, all through exposition. You could have showed a scene of how they met. It was like the writers were thinking halfway through the script, oh wait a minute, why on earth would Lydia be in a relationship with him? I mean, as one of the antagonists, he did work well with the black humour, as did his motivation, but it was all too familiar to the original. The only clear element they managed to improve on was the expansion of the afterlife. It was exciting and eerie. Most of this was introduced in the third act, which is the best part of the film, and kind of saves it from feeling like a bore. I think the performances really helped keep this movie afloat. It really depended on the tone and energy that the actors were hitting the mark on, and they understood that very well. The practical effects and stop motion were honestly a breath of fresh air to see. The makeup and visual look were so detailed and thorough, and what's even better is that it all looked convincing. It felt real. In today's age of filmmaking, I have to applaud people like Burton and Nolan who opt for practical effects over CGI. Sure, it costs more money, but my god, you're working in a high budget movie. You might as well go all out. And the results pay off ecstatically. They managed to make Michael Keaton look exactly the same as he did 36 years ago. And it also shows what a great actor he is. To still perform with that rugged voice and quirkiness. I don't think this is a bad movie, it was just kind of disappointing. I think watching it back I'll have a different opinion. I wasn't expecting this movie to be amazing, but it just wasn't giving me a good reason to say, yeah, this needed to be made. It was following the same steps as the first. Now I can understand you going through the same beats and rhythm, but when you're having Beetlejuice do the exact same thing he did in the first, and have the protagonist form a deal with him, that doesn't have to be the only way to make this story happen. The way Beetlejuice's storyline of him running away from his ex merging with Lydia's storyline should have been different, and it took way too long to get to that point. There was a lot of sulking around in the first and second act, not really having that impact with memorable dialogue, distinct characters and inventive scenes. Yeah, 5 out of 10. It's fun, but I really didn't see the point of this being made.